I've got some troubling news about England's royal family.
Beneath the howling skies of a storm-ravaged London Buckingham Palace harbours a secret that could shake the monarchy to its core. A sealed envelope containing the final decree of Queen Elizabeth II is entrusted to Catherine, Princess of Wales, a testament granting her supreme authority, and a pink diamond necklace, the symbol of absolute trust. But Camilla the Queen, consumed by burning jealousy, weaves a ruthless conspiracy to seize both the decree and the jewel, determined to cement her own power. Opposing her is William, Prince of Wales, who silently spins an intricate web, turning every arrogant move of Camilla into a step toward her downfall. As the two sides clash in a tense game of power, a single misstep could bring the monarchy to its knees. Will Camilla claim the throne of her ambitions, or will William and Catherine safeguard the inviolable legacy of the Queen? Rain poured down like silver blades, slicing through the September sky of London in 2025. Clarence House, the residence of the Duke of Kent, was steeped in a heavy silence, broken only by the howling rain outside the windows and the ticking of an ancient clock on the mantel. In the oak-panelled room, the light from the fireplace danced across portraits of ancestors, as if the spirits of the royal lineage were watching this fateful moment. The Duke, with his silver hair and stern face, sat in a crimson velvet armchair. Though frail with age, his eyes still gleamed with the clarity of a man who had witnessed the tempests of the monarchy. His trembling but resolute hands clutched a sealed envelope, the final decree of Queen Elizabeth II. Before him stood Catherine, Princess of Wales, her deep blue eyes radiating respect, tinged with apprehension. Beside her, William, Prince of Wales, stood with arms crossed, his gaze sharp as a warrior ready to defend the crown. Catherine wore a simple yet elegant grey cashmere sweater, while William, in a navy suit, exuded the aura of an heir to the throne, both regal and discreet. "Catherine." The Duke's voice was low, each word carrying the weight of a dying wish. "I don't have much time left. This is the Queen's final will, the soul of the monarchy. You must protect it, at all costs." He paused, his gaze shifting to William, as if emphasizing that this responsibility was shared. "William, you are her protector, and of this legacy." Catherine nodded her hands, accepting the envelope from the Duke's frail grasp. Sealed with red wax bearing the royal crest, it seemed to carry the very breath of Elizabeth II, a queen who ruled with power, precision, and unshakable faith. William placed a hand on Catherine's shoulder, a gesture both comforting and resolute, as if to say she would not face the coming storm alone. When the Duke handed her a small ebony box, Catherine froze. Inside, nestled on white silk, lay a pink diamond necklace sparkling like a drop of royal blood. The soft seal, the Duke whispered, a symbol of the absolute trust the Queen placed in you. Catherine felt the weight of the jewel not just in its material value, but in its significance. The pink diamond, rare and priceless, was a declaration that she, above all others, was chosen by Elizabeth to carry forward her legacy. William gave her shoulder a gentle squeeze. His eyes flashing with vigilance, he knew all too well that power breeds envy, and in Buckingham Palace enemies never sleep. Meanwhile, at Kensington Palace, Camilla the Queen sat before an ornate mirror, the light from a crystal chandelier illuminating the deep lines etched by time and ambition on her face. Her lips were pursed, her hand gripping a glass of red wine, the only thing soothing the fury boiling within her. News of the Duke's bequest had reached her ears, swift as a poisoned arrow. A decree from Elizabeth II entrusted to Catherine a pink diamond necklace, a symbol of trust that she, the Queen, had never been granted, and worse, William, the greatest obstacle in her path, stood behind Catherine like an impenetrable steel wall. Camilla set her glass down, the clink of crystal on the table, ringing like a challenge. She rose and walked to the window, gazing out at the rain-soaked royal gardens. "Catherine," she muttered, her voice dripping with bitterness. a provincial girl propped up by William daring to hold what I deserve. But in her mind, the true enemy was not Catherine, but William, the heir to the throne, whose sharpness and resolve always made her feel inferior. Her title as queen was her victory, but before William it felt like an empty crown. She craved recognition, respect, and above all, true power, the kind Elizabeth II still wielded even in death through her secret decrees. The pink diamond necklace was more than a jewel. It was a symbol of favor Camilla had never received, now resting in Catherine's hands, guarded by William. Camilla turned, her eyes cold as steel. "If I cannot have it," she whispered to herself, "then no one will, especially not William." In that moment, a dark plan began to form in her mind, a game of power where Camilla would stop at nothing to defeat William and seize both the decree and the jewel. She knew her opponent was not just a gentle princess, but a prince with the intellect and resolve inherited from Elizabeth II herself. Yet Camilla was unafraid. She had survived countless royal storms, and this time she believed she would triumph. The Duke's room grew colder as the rain outside raged harder. Catherine clutched the envelope and the ebony box, feeling the weight of her responsibility. William stood by her side, his gaze sweeping the room as if sensing the undercurrents of the coming storm. He knew Camilla, with her greed and malice, would not rest. "We must be cautious," he whispered to Catherine, his voice low but resolute. "This is not just the Queen's will. It is a test for us both." Catherine nodded, her eyes steady, though her heart trembled with unease. Outside, the rain continued to fall, a warning that the monarchy, for all its grandeur, was always rife with hidden storms. And at the heart of this storm was the battle between William and Camilla, a war not just for power, but for the legacy of a great queen. Night fell over Kensington Palace, casting a cold silver glow from the moon across the marble corridors. In a secluded room where purple silk curtains hung like a veil concealing ambition, Camilla stood before a mahogany table strewn with papers. The flickering candlelight illuminated her face, highlighting her sharp eyes, now gleaming with a dangerous light. Before her lay a copy of the royal decree, not the original, but enough to reveal its contents, the power of the royal warrants granting unparalleled influence within the monarchy had been bestowed upon Catherine by Elizabeth II. And the pink diamond necklace, the soft seal, was a living testament to the favor Camilla had never received. She gripped the quill pen tightly, black ink dripping onto the paper like drops of jealous blood. William. She muttered the name like a curse. It was not Catherine, but William who kept her awake at night. He was not just the heir to the throne, but a silent strategist with eyes that always seemed to see through her, and a mind as sharp as his ancestors' swords. Camilla knew that to seize the decree and the necklace, she had to outmaneuver him, a daunting task. She sat down, her breath heavy but resolute. In her mind, a ruthless plan took shape, calculated like moves on a chessboard. Camilla would not confront William directly, that was too risky, especially when he always seemed one step ahead. Instead, she would strike from the shadows, exploiting the cracks in the palace where loyalty could be bought and trust could be shaken. Step 1. Control the royal jewel vault. Camilla summoned Lady Margaret, the longtime keeper of the royal jewel vault. In a discreet room, the light from a crystal chandelier illuminated Lady Margaret's aged but cunning face. Camilla knew that, though loyal to the crown, Margaret craved recognition beyond what she had received. "Margaret," Camilla said, her voice sweet as honey, but laced with a blade, "I need your discerning eye to inventory the jewel vault, especially the pink diamond necklace." Lady Margaret hesitated, her eyes flickering with suspicion. But Camilla, with a smile honed over years, continued, "It is the Queen's treasure, and I as Queen cannot allow any errors. You'll help me, won't you?" A veiled promise of generous reward made Lady Margaret nod, though with lingering doubt. Camilla smiled, her plan clear: swap the real necklace for a perfect replica. If successful, Catherine would be left holding a worthless trinket, and William would be unable to prove Elizabeth's favor. Step 2. Sow doubt about the decree. Camilla knew that the Queen's decree, though sacred, was not invulnerable. She gathered a small group of distant royals, those resentful of Catherine, an outsider wielding such power. In a closed meeting at St. James's Palace, Camilla stood before them, her voice both authoritative and provocative. "Catherine is merely the wife of the heir," she said, emphasizing each word. "She has no right to surpass those of royal blood. This decree must be re-examined for the good of the monarchy." A few reluctant nods appeared, especially from the Earl of Wessex, who envied William's prominence. Camilla handed him a petition demanding the Royal Council review the decree's legality. "We are not defying the Queen," she said smoothly. "We are merely protecting her legacy." But inwardly she knew if the decree's legitimacy was questioned, William would be forced onto the defensive, and Catherine's power would waver. Step 3. Manipulate the king. Camilla understood that Charles, her husband, was the weakest link in this game. His health had deteriorated, his mind sometimes clouded by medication and royal pressures. In Charles's bedroom at Buckingham Palace, Camilla sat by his bedside holding his hand. "Charles," she whispered, her voice gentle but calculated, "you don't want the monarchy to descend into chaos, do you? This decree, it could cause division. Just one supplementary document limiting Catherine's power, and we can maintain peace." Charles, with weary eyes, nodded weakly. Camilla placed a paper before him, a pen ready. She knew that his signature, though signed in a foggy state, still carried the weight of a king. As his trembling hand scrawled across the page, Camilla smiled a cold, triumphant smile. She believed that if even one of these steps succeeded, she could turn the game in her favor, pushing William and Catherine into the shadows of the palace. But Camilla was unaware that across the monarchy, William had already begun to notice the subtle signs of her scheme. The London sky was cloaked in heavy grey clouds, as if nature itself was concealing the monarchy's secrets. In a private study at Clarence House, William stood by the window, his cold gaze scanning the fog-shrouded gardens. His hands gripped a crumpled note, a report from a loyal servant revealing Camilla's bold moves, the secret meeting with Lady Margaret to swap the pink diamond necklace, the Earl of Wessex's petition to undermine the decree, and the poisonous whispers in the ear of King Charles, who lay weakened in the shadows of his royal bedroom. William tossed the note into the fireplace, letting the flames consume it. He needed no physical evidence, his memory was as sharp as a blade, and every detail was a move in the power game Camilla had ignited. He knew Camilla was a formidable opponent with her piercing gaze and a smile polished by years of turmoil. But William was not one to be easily subdued. From Queen Elizabeth II, he had learned that true power lay not in loud proclamations, but in the quiet precision of calculated moves. Camilla was weaving her web, but William was crafting a far more intricate one where she would stumble due to her own arrogance. Publicly, he would appear shaken, letting Camilla bask in the illusion of victory. But in the shadows, he was preparing a relentless counterstrike. In the heart of the royal jewel vault, where gems sparkled like captive stars, William quietly positioned his allies. Sir Thomas, a grizzled guard with a face like granite, stood before the heavy iron door to the vault. He had served Elizabeth II for 4 decades, his loyalty unshakable. William met him in a deserted corridor, the torchlight flickering on the palace's ancient armor. Sir Thomas, William whispered, his voice low, but sharp. "Camilla is targeting the pink diamond necklace. She wants to swap it, making a mockery of the Queen's will. I need you to guard it. No gem leaves the vault without your scrutiny." Sir Thomas nodded, his eyes blazing with a warrior's resolve. "Your Highness, I swear on my honor no one will touch the treasure." William placed a hand on his shoulder, a rare gesture of absolute trust. With Sir Thomas standing guard, Camilla's plan would be thwarted before it could begin. But William kept this secret in the shadows, letting no hint of suspicion escape. In a private meeting at St. James's Palace, William convened with Princess Anne and the Duke of Edinburgh, his strongest allies. Princess Anne, with her silver hair and razor-sharp gaze, sat at the head of the table, her hands clasped as if ready to face any storm. The Duke of Edinburgh. William's younger brother wore a bright smile but anxious eyes. William stood before them, his voice low but resonant. "Our grandmother's decree is sacred," he said, his gaze sweeping over them. "Camilla seeks to destroy it, but I won't let her succeed. I need your support not just to protect Catherine, but to preserve the Queen's legacy." Princess Anne raised an eyebrow, her voice icy. "Camilla always wants what doesn't belong to her, but she's underestimated you, William." The Duke of Edinburgh nodded, though hesitant. "She's won over the Earl of Wessex. How do we counter that petition?" William smiled a cold, calculated smile. "Let her think she's winning. When an enemy grows complacent, that's when they're most likely to err." Publicly, William showed signs of strain. At a family meeting in Buckingham Palace, as Camilla confidently presented her petition to review the decree, William stood, his demeanor weary, his voice tinged with unease. "I understand the concerns about the decree," he said, his gaze briefly meeting Camilla's, as if acknowledging her strength. "We must consider carefully to protect the monarchy's unity." His words made Camilla smile a triumphant smirk. She believed William was faltering, that the pressure from her petition and her whispers to Charles had weakened him. The light from the crystal chandeliers in Buckingham Palace's grand banquet hall sparkled like captive stars, but it could not dispel the tension gripping the room. Camilla stood at the center, her posture radiating arrogance, as if she held the entire monarchy in her grasp. Her lips curled into a triumphant smile, her sharp gaze sweeping over the silent royals as if she had forced them to bow to her power. She believed she had pushed William into a corner. The Earl of Wessex's petition was causing ripples. Lady Margaret had been swayed to control the jewel vault, and most crucially, she had secured Charles's signature on a supplementary document, a sharp blade, to nullify Elizabeth II's decree, which granted the royal warrants and the pink diamond necklace to Catherine. Camilla felt the game tilting in her favor, and William, with his recent brooding demeanor, seemed to have lost ground. Camilla had spent weeks crafting her final move. She enlisted Sir Edward, a close advisor to Charles, known for his loyalty but susceptible to promises of prestige. In a secluded room at Kensington Palace, candlelight flickered on Sir Edward's aged face as he clutched the supplementary document Camilla provided. "This is the king's will," Camilla said, her voice smooth as silk but laced with a blade. "The late Queen's decree cannot supersede the Queen's authority. You'll persuade the Royal Council, won't you?" Sir Edward, his eyes anxious, nodded reluctantly. Camilla smiled, believing she had secured the final pawn in her game. With this document, she would nullify the decree, strip Catherine's power, and render the pink diamond necklace a meaningless trinket in the hands of an isolated princess. The family meeting at Buckingham Palace was the stage Camilla chose for her decisive blow. She rose, her voice ringing with authority, each word a hammer striking at Catherine's fate. The late Queen's decree must be re-examined, she declared, her gaze sweeping over Catherine, who sat calmly with a serene expression. "And with the King's consent, I propose a supplementary document to limit the Princess of Wales's power to ensure the monarchy's stability." She held up the paper, bearing Charles's signature, her eyes gleaming with arrogance as if victory was assured. The royals, from the Earl of Wessex to the dukes, began to murmur, their eyes wavering between doubt and persuasion. Camilla smiled, certain that William, however sharp, could not turn the tide when the king's signature stood against him. But then the doors of the banquet hall swung open and William entered. His demeanor bore no trace of the defeat Camilla had imagined. He stood tall, his navy suit crisp, his gaze as sharp as a freshly honed blade. The room fell silent, as if the air itself held its breath at his presence. Camilla faltered, her smile wavering, but she quickly regained her composure, believing William could do nothing to reverse her triumph. William strode to the center of the room, holding a slim folder, his eyes locked on Camilla. Before the Royal Council accepts this document, he said, his voice low but thunderous, "I request we examine one small detail. Under what condition was my father's signature obtained?" The question hung like a sharpened blade, slicing through Camilla's smugness. Before she could respond, William held up a record from the royal physician, his voice cold as judgment. "This record proves that my father, at the time of signing, was under the influence of sedatives, his mind not lucid. Such a signature is not only invalid, but evidence of manipulation and abuse of power against the king and the monarchy." The room fell into a deathly silence. For the first time, Camilla felt her blood run cold. Her hands gripped the paper, her triumphant smile fading into shock. Her gaze swept the room, Princess Anne with her razor-sharp stare, the Duke of Edinburgh with a look of disappointment, and Catherine still seated quietly, her eyes now gleaming with unyielding resolve. Camilla realized she had fallen into a trap William had set from the start, with the silent precision of a master strategist. William did not stop. He stepped closer to Camilla, his voice low but commanding. "You thought you could manipulate my father, sway allies, and push Catherine into the shadows. But you forgot one thing: my grandmother's will is inviolable, and I will protect it at all costs." His words, like final daggers, pierced Camilla's pride. She looked at him, her eyes betraying fear for the first time, however fleeting. She had calculated everything, but she hadn't anticipated that William, with his feigned vulnerability, had turned her every move into a weapon against her. Buckingham Palace, with its golden walls and marble corridors, now felt colder than ever. The light from the crystal chandeliers could not dispel the shadow of defeat enveloping Camilla. In the royal bedroom where King Charles rested, the air was heavy with an unspoken verdict. Charles, with his silver hair and weary eyes, lay on a crimson velvet bed, his breathing faint, but his mind clear enough to sense the storm that had swept through the monarchy. Camilla's actions, from manipulating his signature to plotting to overturn Elizabeth II's decree, had been exposed by William in the dramatic family meeting. Charles, though he loved his wife, could not hide his shame and exhaustion at what she had done. In the dimly lit room, the firelight danced on Charles's stern face. He looked at Camilla, who stood silently by the window, her gaze fixed on the darkened royal gardens. "Camilla," his voice was hoarse, each word drawn from the depths of his heart, "what you've done has put the monarchy at risk of division. I cannot allow this to continue." Camilla turned, her lips pursed, her eyes flashing with defiance, but she said nothing. Charles, with what strength remained, issued his command. "From now on, your role in the Royal Council will be restricted. You will have no part in decisions regarding the decree or my grandmother's legacy." His words, though soft, were a sharp blade, cutting through Camilla's pride. She, who had once prided herself on sitting equal to the king, was now pushed to the margins, a mere shadow in the palace she once ruled. Charles, though pained, knew this was the only way to protect the monarchy from his wife's unchecked ambitions. Meanwhile, at Clarence House, William and Princess Anne stood side by side, an unbreakable alliance. In the warm study, the firelight illuminated William's resolute face and Anne's razor-sharp gaze. They were not just guardians of Elizabeth II's decree, but keepers of her legacy, a legacy now borne by Catherine. Camilla went too far. Anne said, her voice low but firm. She thought she could manipulate the entire monarchy, but she underestimated you, William, and Catherine. William nodded, his eyes gleaming with resolve. "Our grandmother's decree is inviolable. Catherine will uphold the authority entrusted to her, and I will ensure no one, not even Camilla, can challenge it." He turned to Catherine, who sat quietly by the table, her hands clutching the ebony box containing the pink diamond necklace. She looked up, her deep blue eyes no longer just gentle, but blazing with the fire of a worthy heir. "I don't seek power for myself," she said, her voice soft but resonant. "I want to protect what the Queen built, and I will do so for her." Anne smiled, a rare but meaningful smile. "You are Elizabeth's echo," she said, her voice filled with respect. "And with William by your side, no one can stop you." In the days that followed, Buckingham Palace became an invisible prison for Camilla. She walked its grand corridors, but every guard's glance, every whisper from the royals reminded her of her isolation. She, once a proud queen, was now a lonely figure confined within her own palace. Her former allies, from the Earl of Wessex to Lady Margaret, had turned away, fearing her defeat and William's authority. Sir Edward, once manipulated by her, now bowed to Catherine with reverence, as if recognizing that she carried Elizabeth II's spirit. At a small audience in Clarence House, Catherine appeared not with the extravagance of a princess, but with the simple elegance that had earned Elizabeth's trust. She wore the pink diamond necklace, its sparkle like a drop of royal blood, not to flaunt, but to affirm the Queen's will. Those present, from dukes to advisers, bowed before her, not just for the decree, but for the light she radiated, a radiant figure, as if Elizabeth II lived on through her. Camilla, from a shadowed corner of the palace, watched Catherine move among admiring gazes. She clenched her fists, her nails digging into her palms, but her eyes no longer burned with fire. Instead, they held the emptiness of a defeated soul. She had dreamed of absolute power, of the recognition she believed she deserved. But now she was merely a lonely queen, imprisoned by her own ambitions, watching Catherine shine like a torch, carrying Elizabeth II's legacy. In his study, William held Catherine's hand, his eyes gleaming with pride. "She's lost," he said, his voice low but certain. "But we cannot let our guard down." Catherine nodded, her hands tightening around his. "We will protect this legacy," she said, her voice soft but resolute, "for the Queen and for the monarchy." Outside Buckingham Palace lay shrouded in night, but the light from the pink diamond necklace still gleamed, a reminder that Elizabeth II's will through Catherine and William would remain forever inviolable. What do you think about William's actions? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.